You think you're seeing the world. You're not. You're seeing a survival version of it, a heavily edited, stripped down, simplified interface, designed not for truth, but for survival. Because if you actually saw reality as it is, you wouldn't function. You'd freeze, overwhelmed, broken. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. There are animals on this planet walking through a completely different reality than yours. Not better, not worse, different, radically different. Take a bee. To you, a flower is just a flower, colorful, pretty, maybe romantic. To a bee, it's a glowing landing strip, covered in ultraviolet patterns, invisible to you, like runway lights guiding an airplane, arrows, targets, signals screaming, nectar here, and you, standing right next to it, see nothing. It's like standing in the middle of a neon city while wearing a blindfold. You think the world is calm, simple, predictable, but it's not. You're just locked out. Now zoom out. That same flower, under a bird's vision, might look completely different again. Some birds can see ultraviolet too. Others detect magnetic fields. Yes, magnetic fields. Not as an abstract concept, but as something they feel, like a direction painted onto the sky. Imagine looking up and seeing invisible highways in the air, guiding you across continents. No GPS, no maps, just instinct, wired into perception. And suddenly, migration doesn't seem impressive anymore. It becomes inevitable. Now let's get darker. A snake doesn't see heat. It senses it through infrared detection, meaning in complete darkness, you are glowing. Your body becomes a bright, pulsing signal. Every breath, every movement, every heartbeat, visible to something you can't even see. Imagine being hunted in a world where hiding is impossible because your body betrays you. And here's the twist. The snake isn't cheating. It's just accessing a layer of reality you can't. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. If animals can access these hidden layers, what else is out there that no human can perceive? What colors, what signals, what patterns, what entire systems of reality are happening right now, completely invisible to you? Your brain tells you, this is the world, but that's a lie. It's just your version, a custom-built simulation, designed by evolution, optimized for one thing, staying alive long enough to reproduce. Not truth, not beauty, not completeness, survival. Think of it like a video game interface. You don't see the code, you don't see the engine, you see health bars, icons, simplified visuals. Because if you saw everything, you couldn't play the game. And your brain is doing the exact same thing, filtering, compressing, hiding, editing, so you can function. Now here's where it gets even stranger. Some animals don't just see different things, they experience time differently. A fly, for example, perceives time slower than you, which means your hand moving to swat it looks like slow motion. That's why it always escapes. Not because it's faster, but because, in its reality, you are slower. You're living in the same physical world, but not the same temporal experience. Same space, different time. Now imagine combining all of this. Different colors, different signals, different senses, different time. At this point, it's not even the same world anymore. It's a completely different universe, overlapping yours, and you're blind to most of it, which leads to a disturbing realization. Maybe intelligence isn't about seeing more. Maybe it's about seeing just enough. Because the more you see, the harder it is to survive. And evolution figured that out a long time ago. So it didn't give you truth. It gave you a useful illusion. And you believed it. You still do, because it feels real. But feeling real doesn't mean it is. And right now, as you sit there, looking at this screen, there are signals passing through your body, waves moving through space, patterns unfolding around you, entire layers of reality that you will never experience. Not because they don't exist, but because your brain decided you don't need them. And maybe that's the only reason you're still alive. What if your brain suddenly stopped filtering, not enhancing, not improving, just removing the limits? You don't gain new powers, you simply see what's already there. At first it sounds incredible, more detail, more truth, more reality. But give it a second. Because the moment you see everything, you lose the ability to focus on anything. Right now, your brain is acting like a ruthless editor, cutting out 99.999% of incoming data, silently asking one question: will this help you survive? If the answer is no, it deletes it, instantly, mercilessly. Now imagine that filter breaks. Suddenly, you hear every frequency, not just voices, but electricity buzzing in walls, air molecules vibrating, your own blood rushing like a storm inside your veins. Sound stops being information and becomes noise, overwhelming, relentless, unusable. Then vision collapses, because what you call color is a microscopic slice of the electromagnetic spectrum, less than 1%. The rest? Invisible, but still there, always there. Now imagine seeing it all. Infrared bleeding through walls, ultraviolet patterns exploding across surfaces, radio waves flooding the air like invisible oceans, Wi-Fi signals slicing through your body right now as you sit there. Not dangerous, just present. And suddenly, the room you're in is no longer a room. It's a storm of energy, chaotic, layered, impossible to process. And your brain? It doesn't evolve fast enough to handle that. So instead of becoming superhuman, you become paralyzed, because clarity requires limitation. Now here's the twist most people miss. Animals aren't seeing more reality. They're seeing a different filter. A bat, for example, doesn't rely on vision the way you do. It builds reality through sound, echolocation, click, echo, shape, movement. It's not seeing objects, it's constructing them in real time, like a constantly updating 3D scan. To you, a cave is dark. To a bat, it's alive, mapped, precise, detailed. But remove its sound, and its world collapses, just like yours would without light. Which means no animal sees the true world. Every creature is locked inside its own version, its own interface, its own survival simulation. Now zoom out even further, because this isn't just about animals, it's about control. Your brain doesn't just filter reality, it decides meaning. You see a shadow, your brain says, nothing. A deer sees the same shadow. Its brain screams, death. Same input, different interpretation, different world. And here's where it gets dangerous, because once you realize this, you start to question everything. How much of what you believe is actually real, and how much is just your brain trying to keep you functional? Think about fear, anxiety, attraction, disgust. You think you're making choices, but what if those are just filters too? Behavioral shortcuts, evolutionary scripts, running in the background, guiding you, without your permission, without your awareness. Now imagine, there are animals out there that don't experience fear the way you do, others that live almost entirely on instinct, some that perceive threats you'll never notice, others that ignore dangers that would terrify you. Each one living inside a different psychological reality, not just sensory, but emotional, which means even feelings are part of the simulation. Now here's the part no one likes to admit. You're not the main character of reality. You're a user inside a biological interface, and that interface is limiting you on purpose, because truth is too expensive. It costs energy, processing power, time, and in evolution, efficiency beats accuracy every time. So instead of showing you everything, your brain shows you just enough to keep you alive and hides the rest. Not because it's irrelevant, but because it's overwhelming. Now pause. Look around you. Everything you see, every color, every object, every movement is not reality. It's a translation, a compressed file, rendered in a format your brain can handle. And you've never seen anything else. Not once, not ever. Which means you have no reference point, no way to compare, no way to know how much is missing. And that's the most unsettling part, because you don't feel blind. You feel normal, complete, certain. But that confidence, it's part of the illusion. Now here's the question that breaks everything. If your brain is capable of hiding this much, what else is it hiding? Not just in the world, but in yourself. So if everything you see, everything you feel, everything you believe is real, is just a filtered simulation, then who are you inside that system? Because here's the final layer most people never reach. You don't just see a limited world. You are built by that limitation. Identity, your personality, your sense of self, are all shaped by what your brain chooses to show you and what it chooses to hide. Think about it. If you had the vision of a bee, You would grow up in a world of invisible patterns, guides, signals, hidden instructions everywhere. Beauty wouldn't be colors, it would be function. If you had the perception of a snake, warmth would be truth. Living things would glow. The world would feel like a map of energy, not objects, not labels, just heat. If you had the mind of a fly, time itself would stretch. Everything would feel slower, safer, predictable. You wouldn't be anxious about the future, because the future would always feel far away. Now stop, because this is where everything flips. You've been asking, what do animals see? Wrong question. The real question is, what kind of mind does that world create? Because perception doesn't just show reality, it builds behavior. And behavior builds identity, which means change the perception, you change the creature, completely. Now apply that to yourself. You think your thoughts are yours, your fears, your desires, your ambitions. But what if those are just outputs, generated by the interface you're trapped inside? You don't want sugar because you decided to. Your brain rewards it. You fear rejection not because it's logical, but because in the past, rejection meant death. You crave approval, status, connection, not because it's meaningful, but because your system is wired to survive through others. And suddenly, your free will starts to look a little suspicious. Because the same way a deer reacts to a shadow, you react to social signals, judgment, attention, silence. Your brain translates them into danger, safety, value, threat, and you obey, automatically, unconsciously. Now zoom out one final time. Animals don't live in our world. We don't live in theirs. Every species is locked inside its own version of reality, its own rules, its own logic, its own truth. And none of them, not the eagle, not the shark, not the human, see the full picture. Reality isn't one place. It's billions of overlapping simulations, running at the same time, in the same space, and no one sees it all. Now here's the final twist, the thing that breaks everything. You've been assuming there is a true version of reality out there, a complete one, a final layer. But what if there isn't? What if reality only exists when it's perceived? What if the world is not something you discover, but something you construct, moment by moment, signal by signal, interpretation by interpretation? Which means, without perception, there is no world. And without your brain, there is no you, not in the way you think. So you're not just inside reality, you are actively generating it, a living renderer, a biological engine, turning raw data into experience. And the version you're seeing right now, it's not the most accurate, it's the most useful. Which brings us back to the beginning. You thought you were seeing the world, but you're not. You're surviving a version of it, a carefully constructed illusion, optimized over millions of years, refined, simplified, weaponized for survival. And the scariest part? You will never step outside of it, never compare it, never verify it. You will live your entire life inside a reality you did not choose, cannot fully understand, and will never escape. And yet, it feels complete. It feels real. It feels like truth. But maybe truth was never the goal. Survival was. And everything you see is proof of that.